I'm Jordan. For the sake of variety, I thought I would do a little update on things I've been reading. I don't want to just be known for doing tags. It's Thursday, but it's effectively my Monday because of COVID. I have a strange schedule, so this is going to kind of act as the things that I've read over the last week, and also a couple movies that I watched that I wanted to talk about. So first of all, I'm still working my way through King James Bible. I read the book of Proverbs, which was quite interesting. It's kind of the most down-homey, earthy book of the Bible that I've read so far. It's also interesting in in as much as it can be said to have any kind of structure. It starts with a description and denigration of strange women, which I suppose is supposed to be prostitutes, but I think it could be taken as something broader than that. And then it closes with a description of a good housewife. But it's not. It didn't turn me off to the book as much as that sounds like it should. It's a very, like all of the books of the Bible so far, it's very unruly and difficult to pin down. But a lot of the proverbs are great. They range from super practical stuff to religious stuff, and kind of the ones that I liked the most were the ones that emphasize the virtues of being silent and kind of shutting the hell up, which is something I need to work on myself. Obviously, it's not going so well since I'm making this video. But anyways, yeah, Proverbs was good. It's not my favorite book of the Bible so far, but I enjoyed it. I also read a short story from one of my favorite writers, Nathaniel Hawthorne. I think it's called the Seven Vagabonds. The Seven Vagabonds. And it was good. It really put into perspective to me one of the things that I really like about Hawthorne, which is kind of the good-heartedness of his writing, if that makes sense. He's obviously super concerned with guilt. That's kind of what he's known for. But even in his darkest works, I feel like there's an emphasis on innocence and a sweetness to it. The Seven Vagabonds is about a very impressionable young man, aspiring writer, who's traveling for some unknown reason, and he gets onto this kind of traveling show wagon, and these various people come on board, and there's really no structure to it. It's just basically this very naive, foolish young man kind of fantasizing about the lives that these vagabonds must lead. And then there's a kind of ambiguously dark conclusion to it, which is the case with a lot of Hawthorne. So it did not disappoint. Hawthorne never does for me. So I highly recommend you checking out that story, or just Hawthorne in general if you're not a fan. I know that he's been ruined for a lot of people by having to read The Scarlet Letter in high school. I didn't have to read that in high school, but I do love that book, so maybe I would have liked it in high school, maybe not. And then also I wanted to talk about I don't read graphic novels at all, but Tom from Tom LA Books notified me of his own graphic novel. I think he adapted it from a book, and I believe, if I understand correctly, he also did the art, and the art is fantastic. It's called Science and Faith. Tom, if you're watching, I promise I did not read this on my phone. I read it on my tablet to do justice to the beautiful art in it, but I obviously can't show that on the tablet because I'm using the tablet to film. But anyways, it's an adaptation of a book that kind of breaks down the theological and philosophical ideas behind science and its relationship to art. I do think it had a bit of a slant in favor of religion, particularly in favor of the Catholic Church, but the arguments are good and very accessible, and it's not at all trying to convert anyone to Catholicism. I think its point is simply to demonstrate that science and religion are not at odds, and it does that successfully. I think it was highly enjoyable, and it's good for maybe midrash. So if you want to read it, I think Tom said it's self-published, so you should contact him, and he can certainly tell you how you can get it, I think. But I highly recommend it. So yeah, Science and Faith by our own Tom. And then I've continued reading Seven Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia. This is a very difficult book to kind of get my head around. I'm not super far into it yet, but it's kind of, I don't know if it was intentional on the part of Lawrence, but the heart of the book is him himself. I'm sure that was intentional. It's about the Arab Revolt, if you don't know. And he does seem to assume that you will know the details of the Arab Revolt. He doesn't give you a whole lot of background. You're kind of left groping around a lot. He gives you a general at the very beginning, he gives you a general overview of what the issues are. So it's not impossible but he does seem to assume that the people who would be reading this would kind of know his story already. But what's really interesting about, well, first of all, there are the fantastic, beautiful descriptions of kind of Arabian geography, which are great. That's always fun. But what's really cool are the digressions that he makes. You never know when they're going to come up. They can come up in the middle of an action sequence, and there are digressions from anything ranging from, the nature of warfare to the effect that geography has on religious thought. To there was even a digression about the way humans mistreat animals, which was quite refreshing. But it's hard to know what to make of the book, and it's especially hard to know what to make of Lawrence himself. And I think he kept it that way. There's a moral ambiguity to his own involvement in the Arab Revolt, because you get the sense that perhaps he's using the revolt as a kind of playground for his own romantic fantasies. He even admits very early on that he intentionally lied to the leaders of the revolts on behalf of the British government. And while he says that did bother him, so far that guilt has not really come into play in him as a personality. But you also do get the sense that he truly believes in the revolts, if only as some kind of abstract thing for himself to fantasize about. So anyways, it's difficult to know what to make of this, I think intentionally, because he's such an enigmatic figure himself. And I'm also just a huge fan of the movie Lawrence of Arabia, which is why I decided to read this. And then speaking of movies, I watched two movies. One of them was Slacker by Richard Linklater, which is my favorite Linklater film. It takes place, I believe, in Austin, Texas in the late 80s, and it just follows around in a very free-form, sometimes surreal manner. It follows around various, mostly young people, just talking. I hadn't seen it for a very long time, and this time seeing it, I realized how dark and cynical and funny it is. I think when I saw it as a younger person, I was kind of actually impressed by the eloquence of the characters, not realizing that they are absolutely absurd, grotesque people who are talking largely to themselves. And I also thought it was oddly, maybe not relevant now, but it's an interesting comparison to modern day, because all of the characters in this movie are very desperate to have a platform from which to expound their ideas, most of which are bullshit, but often very well thought out bullshit. And of course, the internet has provided that platform to all kinds of people like that. So it's been interesting to kind of think of it in those terms. So yeah, Slacker by Richard Linklater. You should check it out if you haven't seen it. And then the other movie I watched was The Red Shoes, which I think is from 1948. It's a movie that I've always wanted to see, and then I kind of forgot about it, and then Jack over at the Rambling Raconteur mentioned it on his most recent tag video, and it kind of reminded me that I wanted to see that. So I watched that last night, and the movie itself is pretty decent, pretty good. I think I need to think about the movie as a whole kind of more before I give my thoughts on that. But there is a dance sequence in the middle, and Jack mentioned it in his video too, that is just stunningly gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in any movie, period. I'm pretty sure I actually teared up or came close to it. It's just, and structurally it's very interesting. It's literally right in the center of the movie, and it kind of, the two halves kind of fold out from it in a very interesting way. But yeah, it's just a fever dream of a dance sequence. It's super, and it uses special effects which are quite dated, but they work, in other words. It wasn't distracting in any way. I was totally caught up in it and enchanted by it. So yeah, The Red Shoes is a fantastic movie, which you should certainly check out if you haven't. And if you have seen either of those movies or read any of these, please let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts on them. So yeah, that's my wrap-up video for this week. I probably won't do it every week. I'm too lazy for that. But maybe here and there I'll kind of update you guys on what I've been up to. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.